Welcome to the Outer Realm with Michelle DeRoche and Amelia Pisano. Airing live on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM in New Orleans.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Thursday night segment of The Outer Realm. We are broadcasting live here on the United Public Radio Network, UFO, Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 and 107.7 FM from New Orleans. We are fully sponsored by the amazing people over at Folgers Coffee who have been a part of our journey since the very beginning. So thank you, Folgers. We couldn't do it without you, nor would we want to. Also, big thank you to Justin Snicker, aka Dr. Snick, the Sonic Surgeon, for his contribution of his music, his time, his voice for the intro that you just heard. He's an award-winning composer of Halloween, horror, sci-fi, and dark wave electronic music, which can be found on all of your favorite listening platforms. Also, big thank you to Steve McGinnis, the artist behind the banners and logos here at the show. Check him out on Facebook and Instagram. Also specializes in the horror genre and does amazing commission pieces. So tonight, we welcome back some personal favorites of ours, Dan Baldwin and George Sewell. And you might remember them from their books, Paranormal Pendulum. Well, they've covered 1 and 2. Tonight they're going to cover 3 and something I've been waiting for, the Sky People, who have been in contact and communicated with our Native American people throughout the ages. So I'm really excited about this because this is a really big folklore thing and I've studied it to great lengths and it's just fascinating. So in order to communicate with us, remember, you have to go to one of the 8 designated chat rooms. Actually 7, because Roku TV does not have a chat room, so I apologize. But remember, guys, it's like a 7-lane highway coming down to 1 lane. So it takes us a while, and we do have to keep up with the guys as to what the topic or, what they're talking about at that moment, shall we say. So I'm just going to bring up their book here. And once they come on, hold on, here we go. There we are. Paranormal Pendulum 3. Dan Baldwin, George Sewell. And this is part of what we're going to be talking about this evening. And they're just a hoot. They've sent over a few photos, and we're going to have a little bit of interactive fun tonight. So I see people are chiming in. Hello, Z-Sun. How are you? Hi, Janie. So people are just coming in. Don't be shy. Come on into the chat room. I see all kinds of people coming into the platforms and join on in. Be interactive. We have a lot of fun. And I think, hold on. Yeah, the guys had a great time with us last time they were on. The chat room was just on fire. And that's what we like to see. So you have to remember, the guests can also see your comments. So we put them up as we go along and try to make sure we get to everybody. So Sky People, extremely fascinating to me. This is something that has been witnessed throughout the years. Of course, we know Sky People tend to be extraterrestrial. Oh, well, hello, Central Wisconsin. Nice to see you. Thank you for joining us. And of course, being ET, we know it goes back pretty much, to the dawn of time. We can see it in, all of these petroglyphs and hieroglyphs and all of these ancient monuments and out of place artifacts and statues. And oh my gosh, the list goes on. Oral history and oral traditions are huge. though, and it's something that gets passed down, and it happens in cultures all over the world. So what is up with that? Why haven't we heard more about this? This is something I really want to delve into tonight, because it's almost as though all of this information has always been there, but we've just not acknowledged it, for what it was. And now we make this really big deal out of disclosure. And it's like, this has been here the whole time. So why is it just now that we're making this big stink about it? Just- I don't get it, because the ancient people have always known it was there. And it seemed to be widely accepted up until the Roswell days. And then all of a sudden it became like taboo. Maybe because it got their hold of some technology, and all of a sudden it's like you couldn't talk about it because they had their hand in it. Whatever the case may be, we are definitely, it's almost like we're having an awakening of sort as to accepting this newfound information, which really isn't so newfound. And so many people struggle with it. It's like some people just it's easy to believe. For example, in my field of work, where we've done paranormal research and have helped people with really malevolent attachments from like day one, for 2 decades. And it's easier for them to want to believe in a demonic entity or a really malevolent spirit. Somehow it's easier to digest. And maybe that's because we have been so conditioned through religion to accept these things. And somehow, to the wayside, extraterrestrial presences have been pushed aside. And I don't get it, because I'll tell you, when I was young, I remember seeing all kinds of ET. It wasn't, well, you know, I know I'm an experiencer, I know I'm a contactee, but I've seen UFOs for as long as I can remember. I used to watch the night skies for it. I was never discouraged from that side of things either. So I'm sure my parents aren't the only ones who, didn't encourage it, but they did discourage it. As I got older, I found out, wait, this is a thing that's been going on in my family for a really long time, like generations. And we've come to learn that they do look for certain families, maybe certain lineages, whatever that case may be, it's happening. So, of course, when you're looking at the Native American people or the indigenous people throughout the world, ancient cultures and current cultures, they still have their oral traditions and oral history where they speak of people who come from the sky. And some people have not the best experiences. We've talked about this on the Gray Zone Uncensored, with, some experiences not so great. But for the most part, the experiences have been really wonderful. Ancient people emulated what they saw and what they experienced, and they did it in the form of architecture and artwork, communication, and they kept retelling their stories. Somehow, a lot of this is lost, and it's lost to modern generations. And again, maybe it's conditioning, but I don't know. I'm hoping the guys will shed some light tonight, and we are waiting for them to tune in. I'm just going to double check here. 1 second. Here's a link. And hold on, bear with me, guys. Sorry. Okay, maybe we'll just try this again. I think we're having a bit of a struggle. And not me. I'm not the one having the struggle. Okay, hold on. Ba, 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 ba. All right, let's try this again. All right. So, again, guys. All right, I think I'm organized now. We have more people coming into the various chat rooms. So be patient with us, please. In the meantime, if anybody else has had an extraterrestrial experience, just feel free to throw it out there, because honestly, I am really curious to see what these guys have found. They claim now to have communicated through a pendulum, because that's what paranormal pendulum is they communicate with spirits this way. And I know if you can communicate with a spirit that way, you most certainly can communicate with extraterrestrials that way, because we've tried different methods of communication through technology with spirits, and we've also been able to contact extraterrestrials as well. So I don't know, guys. In the meantime, hold on. Our guests of honor are coming through.
Here.
Hello, George. We're just waiting on Dan. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Dan is somewhere between Arizona and Georgia, so
Oh, it could be anywhere.
it could be anywhere.
Right. Well, it's nice to see you.
It's good to see you. This will be fun.
Oh, it's always fun when you guys are on. So we were actually just, I say we, the chat room and I, the audience, we were talking about, I'm very excited about the topic, of course, the Paranormal Pendulum 3. And I'm going to put this up again for everybody to see it. And of course, sky people and the Native Americans, to me, is highly fascinating, because I've studied a lot of ancient cultures and their contact and communication with what they call sky people.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know.
Yeah,
I
was particularly struck over the many decades. I'm an amateur historian, so to speak, and whenever I'm getting into indigenous peoples and their histories, invariably they have legend and lore of their ancestors and their ability to receive and work with what they called the sky people. And so, well, we've got the paranormal pendulum as an investigative tool.
Right.
Let's see if we can learn more about the sky people and our ancestors, and we're in the process of doing that. And I sum it up as saying that our past does not look like we think it does.
No, and I agree with you 100% on that. I feel, I think most people know we've been suppressed with information, and our history is not what we think it is. I think it's quite different. And I go back to us being a species with amnesia, and we just get fed what we're told, and this is what our belief system becomes. But yet, when we look at the Native American people, indigenous people from around the world who rely on their oral history, because this is pretty much how it goes. It's not like you can take that away from them the way you can burn a book, let's say. Right? I know. I went there. So I think this keeps getting passed down, and some of these tales go back hundreds of years, thousands of years. So what made you guys just up and decide, nope, this is it? We want to delve further into this.
Well, it kind of centers around one of our main characters in Paranormal Pendulum 3. And this was an individual that I was using a pendulum a couple of years ago when I was at Poverty Point in Northeast Louisiana. Very, very prominent historical sites on the national historical records. And basically asked if is anybody present. And of course, somebody was present. And through a series of yes and no questions, learned that the individual lived at Poverty Point, and I got a date range of about 4,000 years ago, so roughly 2000 BC. And at that time, the village was thriving. The big bird mound was already in place. And this individual, going through a series of questions with him, well, were you a farmer? No. Well, were you a hunter? No. Did you have some other specific skill for the village? Yes. Oh, and it turned out he was the shaman, the medicine man.
Wow.
And one of his duties, if you will, was he was the main contact, not the only contact, but the main contact with the sky people. when they came. And one of the reasons why that large mound was constructed was to receive the sky people when they came. It had other purposes as well, but that was one of its primary purposes. So that, yeah, and that kept cropping up. It was reinforced in some other sessions. We worked with some very, very skilled mediums, and they tend to reinforce what the pendulum says, and the pendulum tends to reinforce what they're being presented with. So it's a nice little checks and balance system.
Right.
But there was just enough there that, well, this seems to be consistent. That is the interaction of our ancestors and sky people, whoever that would be. And let's find out. And that's what we're in the process of doing.
So this is ongoing then?
Well, this will be for the next book, tentatively Paranormal Pendulum Book 4.
Wow.
It continues using the pendulum to investigate and explore. And that's, we're in the close to the end of our research. We'll hopefully have that book out maybe late spring, early summer.
Well, that will be fine. You'll have to, definitely come back for that.
Oh,
My curiosity is, in researching this, have you connected with a lot of, the indigenous people to be able to validate some of this and hear firsthand some of their oral history?
Not specifically. In a recent session that I had, I've got a husband-wife team. She is psychic. She has a great set of skills, and he's very skilled with the pendulum.
Right.
So, basically, just let Lauren describe what's being presented.
Right.
And so she'll be describing the situation in the village. Actually, we took the three of us took a trip to Poverty Point a couple of weeks ago. So that
very nice.
The lady Lauren, so she could actually be on site. And of course, she immediately picked up the energy fields. We went up to the top of the mound, and she was just describing what went on the mound and all about the village. And what was occurring is she was conversing with the medicine man, who's called Jacques Po.
Wow.
So she had a face-to-face with Jacques Po, and
right.
Another curious. There's so many curiosities here, Michelle. My God.
And I love it. I love it.
On the drive back from Poverty Point, it's about a 3-hour drive from here, Shreveport and Bossier City. I asked Lauren just to recount as much as she could of what she was presented with, because I was recording it.
Yes.
And she made a note there that another spirit that we have worked with in the past was also present with Jacques Po, a spirit known as Maria. Now, I'll have to tell you a little bit about Maria. I don't think I've mentioned this before.
No, please. Yeah.
When Dan and I were researching for Paranormal Pendulum 3,
right.
One of the people who was working with us in that research was Maria. She, at that time, was the administrator of the Shreveport Museum, Spring Street Museum. And it's an old building in Shreveport. It's presumably haunted. So, of course, we had to have some sessions there. And really tapped in and was a big help on that. But shortly after the book was published, she up and died on us. Very suddenly. And earlier this year, when Dan and I were on a program similar to this, I think the discussion was going along that when you get into the spirits or this kind of ethereal realm, what you expect is probably what you're going to experience. And an illustration that Dan used for that, there was a session at the Spring Street Museum, and their offices are down in the basement, and there is a spring down there. So it's really cool. And we were having a pendulum session. Maria was present, being on staff there. And at one point, Maria kind of went, "Whoa! What was that?" somebody brushed my hair. And was it the individual we were talking with? Yes, I did it.
Right.
The point that Dan was making was that if Maria believed that any contact with that kind of entity would have to be negative or demonic or whatever she might use, that little brush of the hair would have terrified her.
Right.
She would have run screaming up the stairs or whatever, but because that was not her mindset, it was a kind of a little jolly, oh, he's flirting with me, even though he ain't got a body, that's okay,
Right.
But anyway, during that discussion on that particular program, that I really was having some strong impressions of Maria. And the next couple of days, I'm driving around town and I kept spotting or noticing dark blue Volkswagen Beetles, which is a car she drove.
Oh.
So I'm thinking, okay. So, Maria, are you trying to make contact? Hell yes. So I do a pendulum check on it, and oh yes, it's very positive. So I notified Dan, take out the pendulum and see if Maria is wanting to come on board or she wants to make contact. Of course, he got an immediate big time yes. Spoke with one of our mediums, and oh yes, very much so. Maria wants to be a part of the investigative team for this particular
great
book.
Yeah.
So when we're having our sessions, Maria's there chiming in, which is fabulous. So we got to work with her in body on one book. Now we're still working with her in spirit for the second book. And that is so cool.
It is cool. And she's going to know a lot more this time too. Right? Because you can see a lot more. You know a lot more that we're not made privy to. Correct.
So having her on the team, and there's another spirit who's also part of the team. So between me, Dan, and this other couple, and another person that often works with us, we got we're well rounded.
Right. No kidding. So now you've got a whole team in place, and you're doing something pretty extraordinary. I love pendulum work. I used to do pendulum work, and I found it to be, really accurate. I mean, even when we were doing a restoration on our last home, which was an old Gothic revival manor house, we suspected that there were, doors and windows in certain places. But, through the years, people buy buildings, they convert them into apartments or whatever the case may be, put additions on. And, so I just popped out the pendulum one day, and I'm just like, did communication and led us exactly to where there used to be a door. So we took a chance, we opened it up and found this most beautiful entranceway into a room with all this beautiful wainscoting all the way down, actually both sides of the door, up above. It had just been exquisite, and was just like somebody just closed it all in with live wires, knob and tube wires hanging in between there, that's not a fire hazard. So it's like they were letting us know that, and that's just like basic communication, nothing like what you guys are doing. But, I've also worked with families who have used it incorrectly and got themselves in a lot of trouble as well.
Well, no, we're not into trouble.
No, that's what I mean. I don't mean you guys. You guys are seasoned people. I think it's something that people have to be well aware with any type of spirit communication. If you don't know what you're doing, I don't know. You can't really take a crash course for something like that unless you guys have it going on and you guys are putting it out, But it is an extraordinary tool.
Very much so, and Dan is making very good use of it. Again, I'm pretty much researching village sites in North Louisiana and Mississippi, and he's concentrating in Utah and Arizona in cliff dwellers.
Okay.
and time period before the Europeans were on the continent.
Right.
And he's great success in conversing with them. And again, with the theme of your ancestors interacting with the sky people.
Right.
And I'm surprised at the similarities. We're talking thousands of years.
Yes.
Different cultures.
Right.
Different locations.
Yes.
But so far, much of what is being described in the interactions with the sky people is amazingly similar. So we'll finish out that line of thought and see if there's maybe an overall design or purpose to it. I mean, but the consistency. I wasn't expecting. I was not expecting that.
I love it because you look at the similarities throughout the world, even with architecture. Pyramids, just one example, and that's global. So I can imagine up on the same continent having similarities. I find that really interesting. But I mean, I don't know. How spaced out were you back then compared to? Now we have to take you 5 hours just to get to, another state, for example, in some cases. So these guys were pretty much all over the map as well. But I guess, from the grand scheme of things, if you're flying, you would connect up pretty quickly. And Dan is joining us. Dan, are you ready? I know you can hear me. Just nod if you're ready. I'll bring you on. I think he's frozen.
Okay, there we go.
Hello.
We're seeing. You're there.
Hello.
There you are.
Hello.
Yeah, you're cutting out a bit.
I am.
And you're freezing.
And Chattanooga.
Yeah, you're freezing. Yeah, you keep freezing. We're getting bits and pieces of you. I mean, we'll take it, but we're still getting bits and pieces.
But you're in Chattanooga.
Do you want to drop out and try again?
If it doesn't work, I'm sure, like I said, I am on the road.
And then he's gone. He's on the road. All right. Well, we'll give him another world coming in. Might be easier from his phone, so he doesn't. Oh, okay. We're gonna try this again. No camera this time, though. Okay. Here we go.
Okay. Here I am.
Okay. Don't move. Yeah. So far, so good. Yeah. In and out. You're having an adventure.
Well, at least I got.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. You might have to switch spots in your space or something. Maybe the Wi-Fi is just, you're cutting in and out. That's with speech and video.
You guys carry on. Not a bad connection.
It's a bad connection. Maybe try from your phone. So you don't have to rely so much on Wi-Fi. Maybe you can just stream on data or something. I don't know. It's a tough one. I know.
Yeah.
I've had to do shows on the road. It's tough. You find one little spot in one little corner of the room and you just stay there. So I don't know. Oh, okay. It was and gone. So, okay. We'll wait. We'll see. So you are. So I guess the idea is going to different states and trying to do some comparison work just to see, like, are you looking for a certain pattern specifically?
We're not looking for anything.
Wow, you're winging it. I like it.
The way we live as broad as we can, and we go where the information takes us. And then when looking at the individual sessions at the individual villages and whatnot, then we start saying, whoa, we're getting a lot of similarities here. And so we're investigating, but we have no idea where we're going, I guess might be the way to put it.
Right. Well, yeah, that could be anywhere. What sort of similarities are you finding? Can you discuss that?
With respect to the sky people and our ancestors, the similarities are, it appears to be the same set of sky people. And every time we ask for a description of the sky people, and we've done this in pretty much all the locations and all the sessions, and it is almost universal that the sky people are described as being taller than the villagers,
right?
Invariably light-skinned, and invariably having blonde hair, and most often blue eyes. And that
interesting.
That is a very common description from the literature,
right?
And I was a little surprised that this is exactly what we were discovering. We had no preconceived notions or anything, but that was very consistent in the description of physically what the sky people looked like to our ancestors.
Right.
That kind of led to a speculation that, well, I wonder if it's even the same group of sky people engage in a specific purpose over a period of time.
Right.
And we got a hit on that, and I want to have another session and follow up and see if indeed that is what we are looking at, or if that was just a one-off or whatever. But
right.
We'll see where it goes.
Right. And is it within the same time period? Like, are you dealing with, let's say, 100 years, or are you going 1,000 years? What seems to be the norm that is popping up?
The norm is the activity. The time frame, the oldest time frame was 4,000 years ago at Poverty Point.
Right.
And there was a village in my area in Bossier City, Louisiana, actually adjacent to Barksdale Air Force Base, that 4,000 years ago, that was a major village.
Wow.
Kind of the spiritual center of all the villages in the area of Northwest Louisiana.
Right.
So who knew that?
Right.
So we got information there. There's another site that Dan is very involved with. That's the property of one of the ladies who works with us. And her property, 1,000 years ago, 1,000 years, not 4,000, but a mere 1,000.
That's a long time still. Yes.
It was a very successful village. It wasn't huge, maybe 100 people in the village.
Right.
But curiously, it turned out that at that village, at that time, Dan was present,
right,
as was Maria. And
Oh.
they were a couple.
Ah.
And so nobody saw that coming.
Right.
We had the Dan and Maria connection, and we're able to follow that as kind of a little plot line, and that really enriched what that village was like. And
Right. A past
what
life
happened
too.
to them, what happened to the village. So there's a lot of storytelling about
Right.
these sites.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. So with these experiences that are happening, what seems to be the gist of it, or the main message or theme that they're, that the villagers are having with these sky people? Are they being taught things, or are they being, are they given I'll say like the basic rules of life, live, love, laugh, all that stuff? Or is it something, more dire? Or because the ancient people had a much different relationship with the
Very much
beings
so.
from the stars than what we have today.
Very much so. It depends on who we're actually communicating with. There was one individual,
Right.
Dan and I were communicating with by pendulum at a site near Red River in Shreveport. And I forget what the time frame was. But anyway, the individual we were talking with was just an average villager. He was a farmer, and yes, he knew about the sky people. He didn't interact with them, but he was aware that yes, they came, and there was interaction with some of the villagers and the sky people. And I was curious how he felt about the sky people. And what came out was he wasn't afraid of them. I mean, there was nothing physically frightening about them, and he wasn't afraid of anything that they were doing necessarily. However, he was very intimidated by them because they knew so much.
Wow. Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah, he was aware of just all that they knew, and he was just cowed by it. So that was a surprise, response of the relationship between sky people and one individual.
Right.
But on the whole, it's all very positive, and there is a purpose to it. We're still unraveling the nature of that purpose, but it does seem to be consistent, whatever the time frame is, whatever the location, and the particular villages are.
Right.
And
so the one mound was sort of a landing spot, I guess, when they're coming in.
At this one particular site, Poverty Point. Now,
yes,
it's part of the mound building culture. I have no idea if the other cultures that built mounds, if they had any connection with sky people. I have a suspicion maybe they do, but we haven't investigated that.
Well, there's some belief with researchers that even certain pyramids, not all, were used, especially down in South America, like this side of the world, that they could have been used as a place to land as well. So, and you're on a bigger scale at that point, than a small village per se. So it would make sense that if they were able to build a mound, that they would be able to use it for the same purpose. I would be very curious to see if the mound is also a burial of sorts for some of these beings. It's not unheard of. Maybe that's why you're getting such crazy energy there too. Maybe they're reaching out.
Well, sure, at Poverty Point, there are no burials in the mound, so it was not a burial mound. It was archaeologists, by analyzing the interior soil, they've come up with that mound was built in about 90 days. It's a huge thing. It's 70 feet tall and 150 feet long. It's a big mound shaped like a bird, but they determined that it was built quickly instead of over a long period of time. But no, it was put together. So we're wondering if there was a specific reason, and that may have been. We haven't investigated it.
Right.
We do want to get a pendulum on the question of, was the mound built because of or at the behest of the sky people? That may be. There may be a connection. We don't know, but
it would be curiosity to see if something actually landed on it, or is there a portal in the area that would where they could come in and out of? People chiming in. Hello, Dolly. Mounds in Georgia as well. Do you have any stories of sky people in Georgia back in ancient times, Dolly? That would be interesting. But sorry, I don't know what is meant by blue beings. They're humans that live in very high altitudes who have blue skin. Oh, that was for that's for Z's comment. So hello, Kathy. So we got a message from Dan. So Dan was sort of goes, I finally got in the studio, but couldn't stay locked in because of hotel internet and Chickamauga. Is that what you were saying? That's tomorrow, he said.
Mm-hmm.
So
okay,
that
good.
Yeah, I just responded and said, keep trying. Come on in. Just keep trying. Go find yourself that little corner someplace that will work a little bit better. So Dolly, I'm sorry. Oh, Dolly says
is there
yes.
telephone only?
I might be able to do a telephone. I have his number. I wonder. I would have to call him from my phone and put it up to the microphone, actually. Or I wonder if he tried just audio. We could try no video. Turn off the camera. Or I can call you and put the phone up to the microphone. I'm getting desperate. Why not? Let's try and see what he wants to do. We'll see what he's got to say.
Been at quite a number of sites out west, and it's got some fantastic information.
Okay, 1 second. Kat, I know, but Kathy, right here on the screen, Kathy did come in. See? No confusion. So Dolly says, yes, they do have tales of sky people near Macon, Georgia.
Okay. I'm
yes.
not surprised.
Well, while you're working your way down, you just kind of might want to try that little spot and see what you come up with.
We kind of suspect we're into a series of books. We're having to be very disciplined to stay focused on just these particular sites and these particular time frames. Otherwise, we'll never get the book out.
Right. Right. Okay, hold on. Yeah, she's sending it in a different link. So let me just see. It's a big mound. Okay, let me see if I can get a picture of this thing. And I will just put it up on the screen for people to see. So thank you, Dolly. This is so you can see it as well, George. So while we are waiting for, okay, here we go. So here it is. So let's see so that looks about, wow, that's pretty. Oh, that's the inside. I'm guessing. So yeah, I could. There we go. That's probably a bit more. Is this the same along the lines of what you guys are researching?
There's no interior. It's just a very huge mound,
right,
on a floodplain. Okay, so I mean it's very prominent,
right,
and
right.
Its purpose. Well, again, we were exploring the purpose. We're still exploring the purpose.
Right.
But it was used weddings. That was apparently the big deal. Yeah. Lauren really got the impression that this was a place where people were wed, and that was very important.
Right.
Nobody saw that coming, but yeah, weddings. Right. Weddings. Also, Jacques Poe was showing her a particular spot on the top of the mound that was kind of special to him. That was his particular place where he meditated.
Right.
And what he was showing her was when he was in a deep meditation, he would literally levitate. And I said, whoa, okay.
Right.
So Jacques Poe's got some serious talents going on here.
Right.
But he was also explaining that the mound was a place of healing. And he was presenting to her that his daughter at that time was Maria. She shows up again.
Right.
Jacques Poe's daughter 4,000 years ago.
Right.
And she was really into herbs and using herbs for healing. And she was literally teaching her father, Jacques Poe, about it. And he was eating it up because he loved learning stuff. So Lauren spent some time listening to Maria explain how the various herbs and plants were used in healing on the mound. And for those who may be familiar with the Poverty Point site, not too many years ago, they discovered two round structures. They found a series of circular post holes that once supported a large round circular and I asked about that, and Maria came forth that was her idea, that she had enough heft in the village that she had constructed these two circular buildings specifically as terrariums for her plants, or the plants that needed that kind of environment to flourish. And who knew?
I think it's great. Oh, okay. We've got Dan back. We're going to try this. There you are. Whoa, we have action. Can you hear it? Yes. Oh, woo. Don't move.
The gods of the internet are blessing us.
Yeah, I don't know, but whatever you did, it's working.
Well,
at one spot. Very good. Welcome.
Where are we?
Well,
I've been kicking the door. I missed the show.
Oh no. That's why I always say keep trying. I mean, it's so hard with hotel Wi-Fi because you just have so many other people trying to get in on it, and
I could get in, but I couldn't stay in. So.
Oh no, yeah, I thought you'd come up, but it was completely white. There was nothing, so you weren't full on in. I think you were everything was just trying to get a picture or get a connection, but then all of a sudden you were gone. But I'm glad you're here now. George has been filling us in on all of the research that you two have been up to. It was researching the mounds, and we're talking quite a bit about sky people and Maria, and so yes,
it's interesting. George is in the heartland of the mound building culture, and I'm out here in the heartland of the cliff dwelling culture. So entirely different cultures, and we're comparing apples to apples or apples to oranges. We're going to find out.
Right. And he was talking about the fact that he was surprised that there are so many similarities in the research that you're finding.
So far, it's mostly apples to apples. We're getting a lot of similarities. Surprisingly so, because we have different people asking different questions at different times in different ways, and we're still coming up with a lot of the same validation.
Right. And what validation is that? What is the gist of the communication? Like, what's the common ground?
I don't know what you've covered so far, but stop me if I'm covering old ground. But
we'll get your side of it, and George will just jump in and say.
What I'm coming up with out here for sure is that the sky people was not uncommon. It wasn't scheduled, but the visits were fairly common. They would show up. They weren't considered gods. They were considered people from the sky.
Right.
Sometimes they would point out, I'm from this star, or I'm from that star, or I'm from some other place. And the whole village didn't go up. Sometimes it was a shaman. Mostly the shamans, what I'm finding, went up. But occasionally chiefs would go up, and occasionally individual people would go up. But mostly it was the shamans.
Right.
And what intrigued me was the trade aspect. And I asked, they're from a highly advanced technical culture dealing with a Stone Age culture. What could you possibly trade? And the answer I got was information. They shared ideas.
Oh,
and we're trying to get into exactly what ideas did you trade, but the trade goods was concept, ideas.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, same thing on this end.
Wow.
And, what I've come across so far, I haven't come across any grays.
Me neither.
Okay.
That was a real surprise to me. But again, we're not through researching. But And the researches that I've done so far, mostly in the Southwest, a bit over in Texas and Louisiana, once in Mississippi, but I have not come across an instance of the grays. And I've tried to describe them in different manners, little people or dark people or short people, kids with big eyes, different descriptions, trying to work around it just to make sure I was getting accurate information. And I have not come across the grays yet.
That's crazy. It's so interesting since they seem to be one of the most commonly spotted, or people experiencers have so many bits of contact with grays of all types of grays, tall grays, short grays, AI grays.
Yeah, the little dark ones. But so far, again, that's why I asked the question in so many different ways and so many times, because it was, again, that points out one of the values of pendulum dowsing, because if we were controlling the answers, you would naturally expect to get an answer that you would expect to get, which would be, of course, there are grays there. And we're getting just the opposite.
Right. Huh. So
that'd be a good question, Dan, to ask her, why are we not learning about or being reported?
Let's do that.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, let's make a sticky note.
Yeah.
Remind me when I get back. You know my memory.
Right. So George was saying that the most common one that seems race that seems to be surfacing are more humanoid, blue eyes, long hair, blonde hair, and taller. Is that primarily what you guys are like? Have you come across any other ones? Because
in terms of entities, the only ones I've come across so far are the Nordics: blonde, blue hair, blue eyed, tall, very human looking, Norwegian looking.
Yeah.
They seem to be wearing uniforms.
Yeah, we'll see where it goes, but it may be that we get that description from so many locations over so many time frames because it's the same group. That's why I'm thinking it's the same group.
Right. It's very fascinating to me because there's so many different races out there. Some of them are pretty terrestrial, like they were here before us. You would think that they would make contact. If you look at the Hopi, for example, they talk about like ant people. Look at ant people. Big heads, big eyes, I think automatically. I could be wrong, but to me, that's pretty close resemblance to grays, the long limbs and so on. But, they were indigenous, like Native Americans. So it's interesting to me that you're not seeing them at all, because that's a pretty big deal. It makes you wonder if there was a certain amount of time or why Palladians or Nordics would be the ones that were in the forefront. Maybe that's just it. Maybe we're in the time period of grace, so that primarily.
Could be it. Keep in mind also the area that I'm primarily researching is a relatively small area of the Southwest. And in that one area, there are hundreds of locations. I barely scratched the surface. So it's hard to make a hard and fast rule about that. But again, all I've come across so far is the Nordics. Right. And I'm pretty sure that would be borne out with further research, but obviously we're going to do further research.
Oh, absolutely. It's incredible that, again, maybe there was just the age of, and maybe they
territories.
Maybe. Here's a question, and you may or may not know, because it's more along, ufology. Is there a correlation between blonde hair, blue eyes, and Rh negative bloodlines?
We've not asked that.
Right. Because you go back 20, 30,000 years ago, apparently there were just brown hair people. And then all of a sudden, Rh negative blood comes out of nowhere. You have green-eyed people, blue-eyed people, blonde hair, red hair, just in the last probably 20 or 30,000 years. So be curious to see if you guys make it keep going. As to what you're going to find.
Keep going. Different book.
Yeah. Dolly says most Nordic people are type A. Yes, but type A what? Negative? Positive? I'm a negative. And I have, like, naturally, my hair is like a lighter, like light brown with red, a lot of red highlights. So I don't know. Maybe I'm just one of those freakazoid people. So along with 15% of the world. But you're very welcome, Kat. At least I can do for asking your question. Okay, so where are you going next with the research? I mean, what type of questions are you asking? What are you looking to draw out of all of this? That's a pretty big thing. Like we were just talking, George and I, a little bit earlier about how the ancient people were very comfortable with beings from the stars, sky people. We seem to be in an era since the Roswell days where it's almost taboo. We're not allowed to talk about it. Now we're making this big deal about disclosure. Like, what are you on about disclosure for? Because you have all these Native American people who have an oral history and they've known about it all along. And we're just catching up.
Mm-hmm.
And what we picked up, they're pretty open about discussing it. I've only had a couple of spirits tell me that they did not want to discuss going up into the craft. Most of the ones I've talked to are very open about it, and it's almost I don't want to say matter of fact, but it's not supernatural. It's something that's special that happened, but it's not the gods coming down thing.
Right. I think that's, again, something that they're starting to feel, again, is conditioning, I think. Your religious belief system, you're conditioned to think a certain way. And there's theologians who have come up with the fact that, oh no, the flood did happen, but a lot of these beings that came from the sky would have been revered as gods because they came from the sky, because people weren't conditioned by religion way back then. Not that they didn't have a belief system, but not so conditioned the way we are today. So we believe in a creator, and everything in between kind of makes you wonder, what the frame of mind is, because I've got Indigenous family, so I hear the stories that have gone on and how all kind, even Bigfoot. Some cultures will tell you, oh no, they're terrifying. Other Native cultures will tell you, no, they're just another race of being that you share space with.
Well, a lot depends on what you expect. I mean, if you're of the belief that an alien encounter is going to be a negative thing, and you have an alien encounter, you're going to interpret whatever happens as a negative. If you're like, well, George and I go out on our searches, and we encounter something, we don't jump up and down and scream, "Oh my God, we got to get out of here! That's demonic."
No, exactly.
Exactly. Pick up the pendulums and say, "All right, who's here? Who's willing to talk? What's going on? What do you have to say? Give us your information."
Right. So, what do you think? Have you even gotten that far yet? Because George and I have sort of, wandered around a few different areas here. But what do you think the message is in all of this? Like when, they came here to share knowledge, what did they leave behind for, the different villages of people that they were encountering? Because sometimes there's contactees now that say they have very important messages and so on and so forth. Do you guys know if you delved that far yet? Or
let me jump in real quick and then pass it off to George.
Yes.
The one thing I'm getting, if there is a message, and there are probably several messages, but the one message I'm getting is that part of what George and I are supposed to be doing is to contact people who have had experiences and let them know that it's okay to have those experiences, and that it's okay to talk about it. It's okay to go seek help from people if you have questions, but it's not something to be feared, but something to be explored, and in some cases to be embraced.
Yes.
And then George probably has a better take on the big picture than I do.
Well, the two things kind of came out of the research in Paranormal Pendulum 3 and is also cropping up in the current research is there seem to be two long-term goals, if you will, for all of this contact. And the first of which is to reestablish longevity in the human lifespan, to bring it to about 150 years as a norm. The second is to redevelop, and we're redeveloping our sixth sense for easy communication with the whole realm. That once upon a time, our ancestors had these abilities. They lived much longer and they interacted very freely. And that's why so much of their, certainly their verbal history speaks so easily about these interactions.
Right, right.
So those are two things that have been very consistent as a result or a reasoning behind the contact.
Yeah, so all of their abilities would have been completely in use, being, telepathic communication, most likely at that point, and having your mind's eye wide open. Everything would definitely be with a mere thought. You could see easily into the other side. I agree with that. I find that, Indigenous people and Native American people are just so tuned into everything. They're tuned into the planet. They're tuned into, like working with elemental spirits. They because they just looked at things with just more purity, I think, back then. And even now,
we've gotten away from, if you think about it, back then, especially the pre-Indian cultures, that the psychic ability was a part of survival. You had to have that, and so everybody not only had to have it, everybody had to use it, and everybody therefore did use it. As we became more technologically advanced, you had less and less need for the psychic development. Therefore, that skill, that attribute atrophied, and we've gotten away from it. And then part of, as George said, part of what they're trying to do is maybe to bring us back to where we were so that we can communicate more effectively with the others out there. I think that's one of the reasons our dowsing technique works so well, is because you connect the subconscious with the telepathic abilities of the other beings. My 2 cents.
Right. No, I agree. I agree with you. Do you find some of the locations that you're going to have, like George and I were talking a little bit about portals. I think, right, especially working with pendulums, like they would really be drawn to those energy spots. Have you been coming across portals in some of these areas in these older villages? I mean, the military bases aren't one of them, so there's got to be something going on. Why they would have taken that spot?
Well, I'm in the land of portals out here. Sedona's right down the road. But part of what George and I are pretty much wrapping up the winding down on the book we're calling Paranormal Pendulum 4. I'm going to concentrate the next couple of months on exploring petroglyph sites and vortex sites, and try to devote that part of my research on portals specifically, kind of target that in.
Right.
So, I hope to have a lot more information in 2 months, but I suspect a lot of the petroglyph drawings that are supposedly what they call doodles, have to do with portals and psychic abilities. It's funny, you'll see someone pontificating about the petroglyphs and say, well, they drew the dogs and the horses, and they drew the deer, and they drew the snakes and everything because that's what they saw. But those other things, well, those doodles, well, they're just crazy scribblings.
Right.
I tend to think if they drew the deer that they saw, the doodle is something else that they saw or experienced.
That's right.
I want to look into that, especially the spiral.
Right.
I think that might be a symbol for portals.
Yeah, that is so common, and it's worldwide. The spiral.
Right. No, I completely agree. Because it might look like it was maybe they're picking up on that energy, because it does. Energy just swirls around.
if you've ever meditated and gone into what they call the tunnel,
yes,
that's what a spiral looks like. That's what it looks like.
Yes.
When you're traveling down that tunnel, that's what you're seeing.
Yes. Well, the ancients would automatically build near portals, like energy spots. They just, they just had more information that we can't pick up on anymore. We've just been conditioned, we to not use our abilities. So we don't all have the ability anymore, or we just forgotten how to tap in to picking up on these energy places. But the ancients knew it. You look at a lot of the ancient monuments throughout the world are built on energy spot. And then you have, you would have temples, and then the churches would come and build over top of temples. And they stayed in those areas. It's not going to be any different here. Of course, the people of the land would gravitate towards these places because they had an understanding. I truly believe they had an understanding of how it all worked.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, which is why I asked, have you come across them yet?
Well, there's some, again, the ability is atrophied in me. I'm trying to bring it back out. That's part of what we're doing. But there's some places you can walk into, and George had a field of dreams moment with me a couple of years back when I walked into one of those places. And he said, I've got to go over there, George, into the woods. And George told me when he came back, he said, I was wondering, if maybe you were going to pull a field of dreams on me and just would have to get the police out, start get the search and rescue looking for you.
Meanwhile, Dan's having a time slip somewhere.
Well, I tell you, I thought about it because when I walked into that place, I had bam, overwhelming emotion. I mean, I tell people, when you do psychic work and you have overwhelming emotions come on you like that, what you're experiencing is real, because it's not something that's built up like a tent revival, or you go to a political speech where you're built up and you built up and you built up and you built up and you cheer or you cry. When you're walking into entering an experience and wham, you have overwhelming emotion. That's real. There is no denying that. And that's what happened to me out there.
Wow. Have you had any missing time? Either of you working in some of these areas where maybe you've had contact of your own without realizing it?
I have had one. I wrote it up in a book called "Speaking with Spirits of the Old Southwest" many years ago, where I was with a couple of friends, and it's a little complex to describe, but they were there and I was here, and we had to walk past each other to get to where we were going. And we walked past we were on the same road at the same time without seeing each other. We both got to the end of the road and looked back and saw each other.
Right. That's trippy right there.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty trippy.
Yeah, but to my knowledge, George and I haven't had that experience. But that was really odd.
Yes, I would say so. But
the distance we're talking about the distance of a football field, walking down a narrow dirt road.
Yeah.
And you're both walking in opposite directions to the dirt road, on the same road at the same time, and you both get to the opposite ends, turn around and see each other.
Right.
Hello.
See, this is it's a curiosity to me, because those of us, I mean, I've had experiences. I've been an experiencer going back, way back. It goes down in my lineage, so I'm not a stranger to it. But I do find that when you work in the field and you put yourself out there, and you guys do, you investigate, the paranormal, you're in and around areas of power spot, you go to places where you end up being by yourself in some cases, and very remote places that you never know if you're an experiencer for real or not. I know people no, it's never happened to me. I'm like, the hell it hasn't. I know it's happened to you. So how do you know it hasn't happened to you guys?
Well, as George used to say when he would talk to, he would make his presentations to groups of alcoholics, how do you know you had a good time if you don't remember it?
Well, that's exactly it.
How
So
do you know you had
remember.
missing time if you don't remember it?
That's just it. We don't remember.
Yeah.
So it's hard to say for sure, no, we're not experiencers or we haven't had.
I found, and I'll tell this to people when I make my own presentations, I said, if you go out with an open mind and an open heart and you're serious about it, about having an experience, whether it's UFO or speaking with spirits or whatever, you will have an experience.
Right.
Maybe not every time you try, but if you go out, with an open mind and an open heart, you will have the experience. You will have experiences.
I agree. I mean, there's this whole CE5 movement where people are going out and making this big theatrical thing about invitations. To me, it's telepathic. I go out and just
exactly,
and there it is.
Well,
the next day, like it's
I had an experience similar to one George had across the street from his house. Mine was a little bit different. I was out camping on the reservation, Navajo, up above the Navajo nation.
Very nice.
Above the reservation, in an area where I was looking over the San Juan River, and the area I was looking over was completely dark. I mean, I could see for hundreds of miles, and there are no towns, no roads, no farms, no villages, no lights, no streets over the area I was looking at. And I did a thing. I meditated that evening. Meditated on having an encounter, and that evening crawled into my cot, went to sleep, probably a little before midnight. The full moon had set, and 3 o'clock in the morning, bam! I was wide awake, set up, and hovering over the river was a yellow globe about the size of a full moon, just hovering there. No detail, but it was. If it was some kind of a structure or something, it would have been 2 or 3 miles away. Of course, there's no way to tell, but it was the size of the full moon from my perspective. I sat up and watched it, got out, threw over my coat, put on my warm breeches, crawled out of my nice little warm sleeping bag, walked around to my truck, watched it for another couple of minutes, and it just hung there in the sky. And I said, I'm going to take a picture. Boop. Reached over for my camera, and it just winked out. It didn't fly away. It didn't dissolve. It was there. Then it just wasn't there. And my impression is, I think why I say this is like George's experience. I think it was, hello, we're here. You're doing good work. Keep it up.
You asked, and we delivered.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because they're validating a contact. You asked for it, and they're like, okay, here we are.
Yeah, and in meditating, you ask for it in a respectful and serious manner.
Yes.
You're not out there, hope we'll see some lights tonight.
Right.
It's my name's Dan. I'm here. I'm trying to make serious contact with anyone who is willing to make contact, meditate. And it's worked several times. Nothing quite that dramatic.
Right.
But I'm probably hitting 5 out of 6 times.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. But I have to ask, because you're out there, you're by yourself, you're in the woods. There's a lot of things out in the woods, Dan. I mean, I have to hand it to you because these areas are just loaded with, cryptids and and natural animals, like wolves and bears. But you do have you ever come across?
I will tell you, at night, everything sounds like a bear.
Right.
Everything. You hear a mouse crawling.
Great. You ever get any tree tapping or howling?
No, when I go out, again, I go out with an open heart and an open mind, and often I'm trying to have an encounter.
Right.
And my intentions are good. My attitude is positive, and I expect positive results.
Right. No, I love your outlook. Believe me, but there are some people who associate Bigfoot with extraterrestrial, where you see the orbs of light just before they have a sighting of, let's say, Bigfoot. Some people actually believe they're interdimensional beings. So I was just sort of wondering if you sort of fell into any of those type of experiences, because they'll get tree tapping or communicating across great distances, very benignly in many cases, but when you're out by yourself and you don't get the city lights, so you get
That's
a
why you go
beautiful
out by
clear
yourself.
sky. Yes.
Yeah.
And you don't get all the sounds of the city. You can really hear things for what they are.
Yeah, the bears.
The
They're all bears. Bears are mountain lions. They're all bears.
Hey, I'm a northern girl. I grew up around bears and timber wolves, and
so it's real easy to be confident until the sun goes down.
Right. Oh, I know.
Everybody's brave till the sun goes down.
Yes. Yeah. Except for Dan. Dan will be up there in the dark. I love it because that takes a lot. Because
Well, when you get out there, you look up in the sky. The stars are so bright and brilliant. It's hard to pick out the constellations.
Oh, yeah. I grew up north. I grew up with that in the northern lights and just seeing all kinds of things and days before satellites. So when something was moving across the sky, I'm aging myself a bit, but when something was moving across the sky, you knew it wasn't a satellite.
Right.
Right. Now it's like, oh wait, that one of those 48 Starlinks. You don't know. But so have you thought about this in communicating, trying to communicate with the Native American people or any being that wants to connect with you on this level of communicating with sky people? Have you just thought to ask the sky people to come through? Because you seem to be able to do it, to bring them forward. Or is that going to be your next gig and you just don't want to say yet?
George, tell me about E.T. and Mike Woods Park.
Well, actually, I got a better one. The lady who wasn't there. When shortly after Paranormal Pendulum 3 was released, I was driving to a good grief session. Okay, one of our colleagues is evidential medium, and one thing she was doing at that time is once a month she would host 24 people in her studio for, she calls it good grief, and just whoever comes forth, and she'll try and link them up with who's present. And there's a lot of folks there who get a lot of relief out of it. So I was going to attend that just to lend my energy to the group. And as I was turning into the little parking lot in front of the studio, noticed that the car just beside me, looked over, and there was a attractive lady in the driver's seat, and she kind of looked up and waved at me. I figured, okay, she's probably going to the session as well. Well, okay, fine, I'll walk with her. So got out of the car, closed the door, and looked over, and the car was empty, absolutely empty. And there was nobody around.
So those are fun. Yeah, those are fun.
And looking at it, I also realized that as soon as I stepped out of the car and closed the door, there was some change. It was either a reduction in air pressure, maybe it was a reduction in temperature, but there was something different that changed the scene. So right. That when I looked into the car, whoever she was, she wasn't there. But when I was talking with one of our mediums about it, she got the impression that there was a little dimensional crossover.
Yes.
And we just kind of had we know each other, whatever experience, but that particular moment we just kind of crossed over and just got that glimpse, and that was it.
That happens. Bleed-throughs, right? Like dimensional bleed-throughs.
Life.
Never a dull moment, George. Never a dull moment. That's why you're in this field. That's for the excitement.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, what Dan was alluding to before I went and played with the lady who wasn't there, there was a session that Dan was in town, and this other couple I've talked about, Dave and Lauren, the four of us were at Mike Wood Park in Bossier City. It's a beautiful park. It's right up against Barksdale Air Force Base. And we were doing a pendulum session, and we were communicating with the entity we called E.T., who's in Paranormal Pendulum Book 3. He's a primary entity who was working with Lindsay Higgins, the focus of the book. At any rate, I asked E.T., would it be possible, could he present himself, since, again, Lauren has medium skills, and well, Dan, you take it from there.
Yeah, it was really interesting. There were four of us in a semicircle under a very large oak tree, enjoying a really pleasant afternoon. And I'm not a medium, Lauren is a very good medium, but my instrument is the pendulum. But Lauren and I were sitting, and she was looking pretty much in the center of the semicircle, and I was too. And I looked over to her and said, "Are you getting that?" And she said, "Yeah." And she was seeing. All she would say it was a purple glow. She was seeing a purple glow, and I was feeling an emotion. And if you read the book, in fact, we have a transcript, and all of a sudden, you hear me saying, "Oh my goodness, I am tearing up." I was feeling such a blast of love. Lauren said, "It's mother love. We're feeling mother love," and it hit both of us at the same time. And like I said earlier, it came on just like that.
That's extraordinary.
And it lasted maybe a minute, but there was a moment. It's not something two people side by side, not talking to each other, couldn't create the same emotional feeling like that. So it was just the ET going, "Hey, this is what it's all about. It's all about love." At least that's the message we got.
Yeah, I think that's, with all the propaganda that's out there, all the media, I think that it's like anything else. You put people on edge, and I don't want to discount, people. Some people have had really horrific experiences, that they've spent their whole life just trying to deal with it. But for the most part, I think most of the experiences do tend to be very positive. If I've had really bad experiences, I don't recall them. I recall having good experiences, and we've had them in the house, and it was just like, okay, whatever. We shut down an entire upper level of the house that we weren't using because we had a really big house, because they just didn't like the lights. It's like, okay, we just kept it dark, and just you'd hear things are up there all the time. It's like, all right, whatever, and I don't know. I just think people have to be a little bit more receptive to the fact that we are capable of being all of that, all of our intuition coming to light, being able to telepathically communicate. We're so conditioned to living in a physical place that we use all of our physical senses, and we forget that we're gifted with so many other senses that we just don't even acknowledge. And when something happens, it's just like, whoa, did I just do that? Where did that come from? And we fear it naturally.
Well, again, it gets back to your expectations. If and this has happened to George and I have been with a lot of women in carrying out psychic research, and someone with long hair like yourself gets a hair brushed. If you're expecting demonic activity, you've just been touched by the demon. If you're looking for a ghost, hey, the friendly ghost just waved your hair, just said hello. It's
I've had ET touch my hair. I'm real funky about my hair.
I'm not negating the fact that there are negative experiences, because there definitely are. But I've been doing this for 20 years and I've never had one.
Right.
But I don't go looking for them.
Right.
I don't want them.
Right. No, I think it's all about vibration and frequency. It's all about what you put out there. and I think that's part of working, even again with pendulum work, because I've played. I said I play. I was just telling George about we're doing renovation in the house, and it was haunted. It's like we suspected that architecturally it was a bit different, and I used my pendulum, and they told me. We opened up walls, did this, did that, and lo and behold, it was all there. So it's a wonderful tool, and it is all energy based, and I think you have to have great confidence to be able to use any sort of a device like that, not just to go out and find something sitting, here's a communication device, communicate with
I think that's the subconscious mind works well with the higher frequencies. I think that's why it works so well, because you're directly involved in the subconscious mind. And so
in my roundabout sort of way, that's what I was kind of going with. I just couldn't get it out. So thank you. No, I agree with you. Yes. I think if you have everything going on up here, mindset wise, and you're projecting a certain type of energy and you're inviting a certain type of energy, that's what you're going to end up communicating with. Because you guys have really been lucky with a lot of this. Like you've been able to not falter, even if you're going into locations that are questionable, you've been able to come out of it with some really positive stuff. Because Lindsay Higgins, for example, she went through a lot, and you guys are really able to work through that and help her. So what started to be, something that was a little bit dark for her, because this is what you talked about on your first show. You guys are really able to pave the way for a lot of information for her.
Well, that gets back to the pendulum dowsing technique, especially dealing with the spirit world, allows you to have extended conversations, so you can conduct legitimate interviews or legitimate back and forth conversations over an extended period of time. So you're not just depending on an impression or a single EVP or a knock on wood for yes. Mm-hmm. You can talk back and forth and get legitimate information. Therefore, you can develop different strategies and techniques for helping people.
Right.
You're not guessing so much.
So, do you guys teach this? Because I'm sure you'd have like one heck of a waiting list. I think people are curious. They want to learn how to open themselves up and communicate with the other side, but they don't know how to do it in a safe way, because it's like anything. You look at a spirit board. I mean, the fact that you sell them in kids' stores is like, I don't think you should do that, but in the same respect, it's still a communication device. And if it's used properly, it still works. It's
very powerful
the user.
tool.
It's not the device.
Exactly. We happen to use the pendulum dowsing. We could, if we had a different skill set, we might be using crystal balls or tarot cards or dreaming.
Right.
This is, for me, the pendulum is what works. There's nothing magic about it. Yeah, the quote magic takes place in the subconscious mind.
Right. George, what are your thoughts?
Ditto.
I'm with Dan. Yeah.
Well, all right, I'll jump in again, but I don't teach classes, but I do presentations all the time for different groups, especially the chicken and peas circuit, and I will demonstrate how to do it. It's the technique is, if you can hold a rock on a string, you can dowse with a pendulum. The skill comes in with practice, so you can train yourself to keep your mind open, so that you don't force the answer, so that you don't automatically create the answer that you want to get.
Like anything, yes, yeah. Well, pretty powerful.
It takes a lot of discipline to use it effectively.
Yes,
put it that way.
Right.
A lot of discipline.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I mean, I ran into that in the early days when I was doing missing persons work. Again, I kept running into this. I would get accurate information on the location of somebody, and I would ask the first question: is the person alive? Got a yes. And the person invariably would be deceased at the time that I did my reading. This happened over and over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. So finally, I said, wait a minute. The key point one of the key points in pendulum dowsing is asking the correct question and knowing the question that you're asking, because I was getting accurate answers. Yes, the person is alive, but in my belief system, the body dies, the person lives on.
Correct.
So I'm looking for little blind blue-eyed Brandy. Right. And, is she alive? Yes. Well, her body has passed on, but little Brandy's still alive up in heaven, playing with her cat.
So I was still going to communicate.
I was getting the correct answer, but it wasn't doing me any good because I wasn't asking the right question.
Right.
The thing I learned from that, just in looking for a missing person, I asked the question, is this missing person physically alive now?
Right. See, it is all in the proper way of asking, because I have the same belief system. I believe in the Creator. I believe the soul is eternal. Our essence is eternal. I look at the body as sort of like a meat sack, a vehicle that helps us to exist in a physical place. But heck, we could sleep and leave the body. It's like I always say, we're going to sit and sleep in the car in the garage at night. Probably not. So, we're going to. How do we know we're not in soul school? And we just don't, go home. And because there are times I wake up and I've had a good sleep and I'm exhausted. I feel like I've been worked to death. It's like working 2 jobs, So that's just, I believe that the essence is not bound to the body, even with the body fully functional. And look at people in comas, they're just, many people have come out of comas and just completely had a whole other thing going on when they came out of it. It's just like, it's fascinating to me.
My mom had open heart surgery one time, and the doctors were talking. It was dicey, and of course she was completely out. They had her out on the table and everything, and they were talking about how dicey the operation was. After the surgery, I was there when my mom dressed down the doctor. She said, "Don't talk in front of a patient like that," because I was hearing everything you said.
Wow, see?
I was there watching my operation.
Stepped right out and
She said, do not talk negatively in front of a patient, even if that patient is under.
Wow. See, there you go. Mom knew right there. But look at the experiments that they've done in many hospitals, in the operating room or surgical theaters, where they've put signs way up on top of the cabinets facing up, and they would put the date on it, or they would put a code word. And if somebody would have an NDE, a near-death experience, they would say, "Oh, did you see anything?" "Yes, actually, I saw this sign up there." And "Oh, what did it say?" And they would give the correct message or the date or whatever the case may be. It just goes to show, and then they get the body moving again and working again, and the heart pumping, and they slam right back in there. So it goes to show you, even not deceased, that we still have that capability. People have astral projection and out of body experiences on a regular basis, right? So we're powerful beings, and I think it's really important that we don't forget that about ourselves, because we should be able to connect with spirits so easily. And I like that you guys have found a way to do it that works for you, and that you're doing amazing research. I specifically like this one because having, Native American in my own, background, and hearing different stories, I liked the fact that you're bringing it to light, because it's all out there. Like I say, people are having hoopla. "Oh my God, disclosure." What? Where have you guys all been? We've all known it was there. So, right. So I think it's great. And I hope that you guys seek all the answers you want and connect all the dots. And I guess we're going to have to wait for, Paranormal Pendulum for it to get all the details.
We'll let you know.
I love it. You have to let us know.
Yeah, count on it.
Yes. You'll get them. You guys are persistent.
Well, we may not connect all the dots, but we'll connect a bunch of them.
Right.
We find a whole bunch of dots. Let's put it that way.
Right. You just got to line them all up. So, but I love that. It's a journey and a mystery all at the same time. And that's exciting. Right. So we're winding down, guys. what do you have coming up aside from your continued work over the next couple of months? Are you speaking anywhere? Is there anything you want to promote? Promote.
This time tomorrow, I will have. I'm investigating a possible past life for myself.
Oh, exciting!
I will be doing that tomorrow.
Right.
And then December, January, again, I want to be investigating Native American connections to portals. And then George and I will get together and bang heads.
Excellent.
About what we're going to do with all this information.
What indeed. I love that. I love that. George, how about you?
Just kind of keep cruising along.
Right. I like that. You just kind of go to the beat of your own drum and see where it ends up. I like that.
Big rush. If I'm curious about something, I'll go there and.
Right. I love it. I love it.
Right.
Thank you so much for coming on, Dan. Sorry you had such a tough time, but I'm glad you finally made it and that you were able to spend some time with us. And I hope you will keep in touch and let us know how Pendulum 4 goes.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think I understand why you had trouble, Dan.
Right. I know.
You didn't wear your hat.
I knew something was different.
There we go. That's what it was.
It's the hat. Yeah. Okay. Well, note to self, Dan.
That's my antenna.
That's it. That could very well be. All right, guys. Thank you so much. I'll be in touch.
Bye-bye.
All right. Good night. Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Well, guys, we've come to the end of another fantastic segment. You've got to love these guys. They're just wonderful. Bit of a slow start, but we did end up getting quite a bit of information out. So thank you to Dan and George for coming out and spending the evening with us and talking to us about their research. I'm really curious to see where they go with it all. It sounds fascinating. I love talking about portals and vortexes. And as you know, because you've heard me do it so many times here on the show. So I think they're really going to go someplace with it. So tomorrow night, or not tomorrow night. See, I did this. I really confused this last night. I need Bubbles. I need my little bubbly compadre sitting here. Send her some love and light. She's suffering with a migraine tonight, and barometric pressure just wreaks havoc. So send her some love, light, hugs, prayers, everything. Let's just get her back on track so we can get her back on the show. We miss her. So Wednesday night, this will do it too. This will get Bubbles back out here. We welcome back our very good friend Hamilton White from the Lost Relics of the Knights Templar TV show. He's going to be here live, by the way, all the way from the UK. That's 2 a.m. start time for him. So he's a champion. But he's going to be discussing his new book. Yes, you heard right. His newest book, Crusade Against the Grail 2. And wait for it. He's going to be doing a giveaway. So tune in. No, it's not the chalice because I've been begging for that forever. But anyway, you will be doing a giveaway. So you have to tune in and you have to answer the question or whatever it is he's going to put out there because I don't know yet. And see if you can win the book or two. And Thursday night, we welcome the return of Dr. Arlen Andrews Sr., who's going to be discussing his book series, Thaw. So this is going to be a little bit different for us as well. So I hope you all have a terrific weekend. Big thank you to Folgers Coffee for sponsoring the show. Big thank you to Dr. Snick, a.k.a. Justin Snicker. Big thank you to Steve McGinnis. Big thank you to all of you guys in the chat room. We love you. We appreciate you. And we shall see you all next week. Have a terrific weekend and good night.